So here we have a pyramid neuron from a rodent neocortex, which is the thin outer layer of our brains that is responsible for higher order cognition. It's the center of intelligence in mammals. And these dendrites branch out to thousands of synapses or neuron junctions that'll connect to other cells in the same layer of the neocortex, other regions of cortex, and far away to different parts of the brain. And these dendrites can be organized into different receptive fields. They are proximal, distal, and apical receptive fields that correspond to feed forward contextual and feedback information, or so we hypothesize. Clearly, this cell is very complex, and not to mention the plasticity associated with these cells. These synapses grow and die constantly, and they strengthen and weaken, learning connections to all the cells throughout the brain. The collection of these properties is what gives our brains the remarkable intelligence and robustness and capacity for learning. Artificial neural networks are based off of the human brain, or sort of. This is an artificial neuron. And don't worry, this is the most math I'm going to show you today. Essentially, this neuron will take input from all the cells in the layer that precedes it. It'll sum together the weighted contributions, run those through some sort of an activation function, which determines if the cell fires or not, or if it's active. Clearly, this is a simplified abstraction of the real thing. It's missing all of the complex dendritic properties in biological neurons, and it doesn't have any mechanism for growing or killing or weakening synapses. What does that matter? These neurons, when arranged in layers and many layers in a hierarchy or deep neural nets, still do some very cool, intelligent things. Deep learning models have set the bar for state-of-the-art in a lot of tasks across AI and machine learning, such as object recognition and machine translation. But these, and although the fundamental units of these deep learning networks vary a bit from the biological neuron, they still do have some semblance, some intuition from biological, brains. The neural networks behind the recent wave of object recognition success, such as a neural network that ran through 10 million randomly selected YouTube videos. And what did it end up learning to most recognize? Cats. These models contain inspiration from human vision processing. They are layer upon layer of feature detectors, where the lowest levels will learn simple things like lines and shapes. And then as you go up the hierarchy, you'll learn more complex abstract features like faces and chairs. And this is very similar to how humans will process visual streams up the vision hierarchy. We take in visual data from our retina, and this runs through the V1 region, which does very simple shape detection, and all the way up to inferior temporal cortex, which does complex processing. These deep learning algorithms work well if you train them on a lot of data and a lot of examples, and I mean millions and millions of labeled photos. You may have heard recently of AlphaGo, the deep neural net that beat Lee Sedol, the world's best Go player. AlphaGo embodies some aspects of human intelligence, such as reinforcement learning and goal-directed behavior. And what you see here is Sedol's reaction to what has been called a creative move. This is a non-human move that left him dumbfounded. I think this is really cool. As an artificial intelligence researcher, this is a big step forward for the field. But we should be careful not to get ahead of ourselves. There's still a very long path ahead. If you take this AI and you try to get it to play checkers, let alone pick out one of those cats in a YouTube video, it'll stare back at you blankly. Playing Go is the only thing it's good at. AlphaGo is narrow artificial intelligence. And the way that AlphaGo learned to play the game was by observing expert moves and playing against itself. And to be specific, it observed 30 million expert moves and played itself 1.3 million times. Now, training Lee Sedol this way would have taken about 330 years. So it's clear to me that we're missing some fundamental mechanisms of human intelligence if these systems must learn in such different ways. So what about the problems where we don't have such clearly defined tasks like a board game, and we don't have the luxury of so much labeled data, such as diagnosing rare diseases? We can't rely on narrow artificial intelligence algorithms like deep learning. So I suggest that we step aside from these specific applications and pursue a more general artificial intelligence algorithm that is able to do things like learn on unlabeled data and generalize across tasks, not just play one board game. And researchers at the forefront of AI agree that the biggest problems in the field where we need to direct the most research is in unsupervised online learning. That is the ability to continuously learn from unlabeled data. And we're all doing that right now as I'm talking to you. We're constantly processing streams of incoming sensory data, and we're learning and inferring on that data in real time. Figuring out the mechanisms behind this learning, that is, discovering how the human brain works, is arguably the greatest challenge for mankind. Fortunately, we find ourselves in an age, a renaissance of neuroscience, marked by the advent of technological advances that enable us to probe specific dendrites on individual neurons in the brain, such that we can record the dynamics and study their behavior. This beautiful imagery you're seeing is courtesy of the Human Brain Project, one of the enormous initiatives set out worldwide that is aiming to map the 80 or so billion neurons of the human brain. These recordings are specifically from the somatosensory cortex of rodents. And the best part of this is it's all data. It's all data that we can use. They've made publicly available their huge database of all these recordings. And the data is beautiful, but as you can imagine, it's complex and massive, leaving us with non-trivial task of extracting conceptual understanding from all this data. Many experiments probe individual neurons within the neocortical layers, targeting dynamics of the specific dendrites and resulting in such great data. And an example result from this is we are confident that layer 1 of the neocortex is responsible for communicating feedback from higher regions in the hierarchy because we're able to experiment and see what the apical dendrite connections in that layer are doing and how they influence the layers below. And investigating cell by cell, layer by layer like this is immensely useful. And a tool such as this is a screenshot of the database tool released by the Human Brain Project, where you can see mappings of neocortical pathways in between layers. Hidden in these connections are the mechanisms, the algorithms that underlie mammalian intelligence. For example, if we take a look at layer 6 down in the yellow, and from left to right, we see a lot of connections that feed forward to layer 4 in the purple. We can zoom in even further to get data on individual synaptomes making up these pathways, like all these feed-forward connections from layer 6 to layer 4. And this can give us precise clues to mechanisms behind high-order cognition, like time-based inference and behavior. A data tool like this is immensely useful to myself and researchers around the world. And sure, we can use data analytics tools to try to understand what the data is telling us, try to glean some structure from this data. But I argue what we really need to understand the complexity is neuroscience theories. We need theories that can help guide our understanding of all this data. Mapping the connections throughout the brain is useful if we can then use those connections to validate the mechanisms that are hypothesized by those neuroscience theories. Some examples of these theories fall under predictive processing, such as Bayesian brain, which applies a statistical framework to this data to try to explain the coordination between incoming perception and outgoing motor behavior that mammals and we humans engage in. But how do we know predictive processing is correct? How do we validate that this Bayesian framework actually fits to data? We need to abstract these theories into computational frameworks such that we can actually use the data and test those theories. And for now, advances in artificial intelligence largely come from computer science and somewhat linguistics. Scarce are the advances that come from neuroscience. But the general principles that can be applied to AI algorithms are very difficult to find in the vast, overwhelming neuroscience literature. Neuroscience today is a collection of facts rather than ideas. It's missing the connective tissue. So here are the challenges. How can we bring neuroscience theories closer to the computational frameworks necessary such that we can use neurobiological data and validate those theories? And how can we develop machine intelligence algorithms that are more in tune to the biology of our brains such that we can build general artificial intelligence systems? We need computational theories of the brain that can be validated against and ask questions of biological data, and that can be implemented in software directly so we can test them towards useful applications. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm working to get us to general artificial intelligence. And figuring out these algorithms that run general AI, that will yield insights into mysteries of higher level reasoning and cognition, such as planning and language. Numenta was founded with this goal in mind, to reverse engineer the human brain and build machine intelligence based off of those principles. And our technology, hierarchical temporal memory, or HTM, is a theory of the neocortex that has been abstracted into a computational framework and implemented in software. We have the basic fundamental neocortical algorithms running for machine learning applications. And Numenta finds itself at a very rare field. It's at the intersection of neuroscience and artificial intelligence, where we're able to make contributions to both fields. We're driving innovation and research to both neuroscience theory and artificial intelligence. But there's more that we can do to bridge the gap. These fields should inform one another, and we need to actively encourage collaboration. This can be done with PhD programs that aim to educate in both neuroscience and AI, journals that seek to unite the fields, conferences where practitioners and researchers can engage in productive dialogue, and open source research initiatives. Cannot stress how important enough that is. Examples include the Human Brain Project and Numenta. And by increasing the synergy between artificial intelligence and neuroscience, a bootstrapping process will occur. More neuroscience will inform better AI, and better AI will better drive neuroscience theories and experiments. But why does this matter? What are we trying to accomplish here? Taking us beyond current neuroscience understanding will bring us closer to solving some of the biggest problems with our brains, finding cures and preventions for diseases such as Alzheimer's disease and disorders and traumatic brain injury. And getting closer and achieving general artificial intelligence will unleash powerful tools that can help change industries across the world. Think of preventive medicine technologies that can find and attack cancer before it even starts, and intelligent agents that can help bring education to third world countries. So where will this artificial intelligence and neuroscience synergy take us? I'm certain it'll help us tackle some of humanity's greatest problems, because if we can solve intelligence, we can solve everything else. Thank you.